Alright, hi. I thought I'd do a bit of VI awareness training. It's Elaine from BlindAid, and what I wanted to talk about today is just to give a better understanding of visual impairment. So visual impairment is damage to the eyes or maybe neurological conditions through the brain. So wearing glasses can be correctable vision. So that's not something that is affiliated with visual impairment. When we've got visual impairment, we can have all variants of eye conditions. We've got obviously different large fonts and small fonts. When people get to font 48, then that's going to be a cut-off size font for using Braille or different other ways of technology using speech software. Well, when it comes to sort of reading access and finding items and things at home, I know it's daylight in here, so it's very difficult, but these lights we issue with the support of a grant, our small grant, and we've issued a lot of these to our service users and they've really found it beneficial. It's nice and light, it's portable, it can go in a handbag easily, and for people that maybe go and stay at families, weekends, it's ideal because giving them that extra light. I find that sometimes if you drop something under the table, you could just use the light to just focus on where maybe that small item might be under there. And the lumens, it's a really good light for visual impairment. Not laser lights, LED lights. LED lights are best for visual impairment, I find, for making a fair distribution of that light spread. So just by using this against the page, you might be able to see that it does actually help. It does make it a bit brighter. Not for long-term reading, but certainly for just a small part of reading, maybe a point of a letter. Also, what I didn't say was about the technology. So if we activate my voiceover,
voiceover on, portrait.
So obviously now with the voiceover, this is an iPhone. 76% of people from an RNIB survey last year actually have access to Apple devices. So I think the reason being that there's an app called Seeing AI, and that converts text to speech. And so what we have,
6 apps folder, opening 6 apps folder, 6 apps.
and we can obviously use the voiceover. Is it going to go into it? Okay, so if I hover it over this letter.
Adaptations. Vision impairment can affect UAL acuity, where the eye does not see, jets as clearly as usual. It may also.
So what that's doing straight away is reading.
Most see as wide an area as usual.
Still reading it.
Moving the eyes or turning them. Some people are also born with low, are varying levels of visual impairment. The eye, see.
You would have paid about £2,000 for a piece of equipment to have converted text to speech a few years ago. This is a free download app on from Microsoft Design, affiliated with Apple devices. You can't get that on an Android phone. So we have had some people that are very good with their technology, and as soon as they've had this demonstrated to them, they've actually gone into their mobile provider and said, okay, can I have an Apple iPhone? It's a personal preference, but I'm definitely an Apple mind. Some people prefer the Samsung, but sadly you don't get this app on the Samsung or the Android phones yet. I'm sure they're developing something so that you can. And if we go into Error Simulator,
double tap to open.
This is obviously doing what the visual impairment glasses. So if I go into cataracts,
bullet blurry vision. Bullet it affects older people more. Bullet affects 24.4 million in the US and 111.74 million globally.
If I double tap to go into it,
diseases.
Straight away it's going in to obviously give me that blurry vision. And as
17% adjustable.
I'm going to take off voiceover for the moment.
Swipe up or down. Alert. App selected. Voiceover off.
But if we use the line bar at the bottom, as they deteriorate, that now is cloudy, foggy, and that person could be registered blind. So there might be a bit of colour in there, but very, you can see the blue a little bit from there, but no detail. If cataract surgery can't be performed, then obviously that's going to make that person go blind over time. You've got retinitis pigmentosa. That's the tunnel vision. So that was where we had the tunnel vision simulated specs. And basically that is giving all of the peripheral vision has gone, and they've got to keep doing a lot of head tilting and scanning around to see what's in their focus. If we make it go worse, then the centre vision becomes smaller. If we then go to diabetic retinopathy, so someone who's got diabetes, that's now causing hemorrhages on the retina, and that's the impact, depending on where those hemorrhages are, as to how much it's impaired on their vision. And then you've got the age-related macular degeneration, or macular degeneration. Starts off, damages the centre of the optic nerve, depending again on how efficient people are with their peripheral vision, as to how confident they're going to be and independent in going out. So again, you can understand now that if I look at someone straight ahead, that's going to be on their face and head and shoulders. But if I move my vision to the right, then that's now going to show the person looking at me. So it's a big difference on how we can become familiar. That's Aera Simulator, and that's a really good one. Just going back quickly to voiceover, if I turn it back on, if we get someone that's lost their vision suddenly, or gone from being partially sighted,
Thursday, 9 July.
what we would do when they come to any of our social activities, we normally run social group in Southwark, and I would ask service users that are very efficient with their technology. We've got some people that are really good with Apple devices and Android. Then we would just get the person used to that spatial awareness, so they get to know where everything is on their screen. If we go to weather, double tap.
Button. The weather channel. Button.
And we'll get them to read it.
Cloudy. 19 degrees. Thursday. Showers. High 20. Low 12.
So again, that's given them the forecast, and they can have that idea. So there's just so many things that voiceover now is giving them that independent access. And just small bursts, you can keep turning voiceover off and on. And we would just say to someone, just try and get used to using that technology. Don't use it all the time, because it will take a while to get used to it. But at least now we know that with the right handset, that they're hopefully going to have that access.
Access selected.
That's a little bit of the technology. Okay, so what I've got now is just some visual images, photographs of visual impairment. And so what we have here is someone that has no centre vision. And basically that's their detail and their focal point that's now impaired. I have no centre vision, so I'm registered sight impaired. And what that means is that I rely on my peripheral vision to actually get what's around me. So I use something called eccentric viewing, which the science behind that is really good, because what that's enabling us to do is finding our best field visual point and going to that directly. So I know that if I look straight at the camera, I'm looking at my blind spot. But actually what I need to do is slightly look to the right of the screen, and then that means now that I'm looking between, if you think the clock face is between 1 and 4, so I'm now looking at that point on a clock face, and that means now I can see the phone. So basically what I'm doing, I've moved my blind spot to the side, and I'm actually able now to see that phone and the camera. So it's about moving to your best field point, and everyone's can be different, but obviously with mine I know that's where it is, between 1 and 4. And obviously if I'm going along the street, then I need to keep focusing and scanning around and at my best field visual point. Otherwise, if I'm just walking along the street fixated, then what's going to happen is people are all of a sudden going to come in out of my blind spot and startle me. So it's about people using the remaining vision to the best of their ability. And that's what we try and show people as well. When we first assess people, I'll make sure that they're trying to use the best field visual point. And what happens is then that could be the difference between them staying indoors every day, waiting for someone to come and take them up the shops, or them gaining that confidence and going up to the shops themselves if they're using the best of their remaining vision. And what we've got here on the next one is the blind spot, and what we have to do then with using that loss of centre vision. All my detail's gone now, and so what we're having to do, I look either above the text line that I want to read to move my blind spot, or I'll go to the line below to then get used to seeing that line. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of adjustment to get used to that. And what I would do as well, if I'm using my magnifying glass, I might have reading glasses as well, because I still I'm long-sighted. So the part that I want to read, I would keep my magnifying glass there. Obviously this print is a little bit blurry, but I would keep my magnifier held and I would just follow along the page. I don't try and move that magnifying glass, but I would want to get the words in focus, and then I can try and use the skills that I said with that. So that's some of the techniques. The low vision clinics at the hospital, the eye clinics, they would refer us to people visually impaired along to the eye clinics, and then that's where they can get the magnifying glasses and other low vision reading aids. So that's always a crucial starting point for people to learn to try and read again. Obviously now with technology you have a lot of auditory that's available. I'll go through that in a minute. What we've got here on the image again now is the reverse. So that's someone who's got tunnel vision, and this can be the most common form of blindness, something called retinitis pigmentosa, and that means that they've lost their peripheral vision. So they're the opposite to me. So whereas I've lost my detail, I need magnification on the computer screen, I need large print to read, and I'm going to use my magnifying glass. Now with the reverse, they've still got hopefully that pinhole of vision that is quite clear. Sometimes it can be blurry vision, which obviously then is harder for them to read small print, but they would maybe use more speech software. But they're certainly not going to have a computer with magnification, because that pinhole of vision is then going to be, has to be like a normal size. Because if you have anything large print in that in the central vision, then it's going to come outside where their blind spot is of their peripheral vision. So what works for one doesn't always work for another. And that's quite clear here with the different font size. You imagine if you've got tunnel vision, if you're going to be using font 48, that's going to be far too big because you've just got that small pinhole of centre vision. But for me, that might be better, or slightly smaller. This size font might be good for someone with no centre vision. So just assessing someone to see what size print's going to work best for them is a really simple thing to do. I know when I was in education supporting children that were blind and partially sighted, I went in to support a student in year 7, and he was using font 72. He had severe sight impairment registration, and just by assessing him to get his right size font and the strategies of reading properly, he started using font 48, and his reading age assessment went up 5 years because he was using the wrong size font to be able to get assessed properly for his reading. So it's really important that, and it makes people feel a lot more confident as well in trying to get that right access. Colour contrast is really important. So when people have got like the yellow signage here and the black, I can see that quite clearly from far away. I'm not going to be able to read the small print, but again, different variants of visual impairment, people are going to be able to sight that. So someone seeing this signage as opposed to the buff colour paper, that's going to be better with the visual impairment. So again, when people put on the simulated specs, they would see that that is going to be a lot better access. What we have here with the colour and contrast, that's a lot better as well to see the definition of the blue cup against the red and the pink cup against the yellow tray. If I was to put on the yellow cup against the yellow tray, when you're visually impaired, there's not so much definition. So the boldness of a different colour cup to the different colour tray. The tray obviously keeps it a lot tidier when you are pouring. If that was hot water, you're not going to burn yourself, hopefully, because it's all going to be contained in the tray if you did spill it. What we have here, the local authorities, social services, sensory teams, they would do an assessment with someone who's been recently registered maybe or become visually impaired. And this is a liquid level indicator. Really simple gadget. They cost about £10 to buy. But the sensory team have a duty of care with minor equipment provision that they can do. So with an assessment, they would come into the person's home and they would look at the kitchen utensils maybe that they're using, and they'll try and sort of differentiate and assess them for different utensils and tools to do a better and safer access. So for making hot cups of tea or coffee, they put the liquid level indicator on the side of the cup, and basically now by pouring, obviously I'm not clear vision myself, but I can judge without looking. It will bleep and vibrate. That's the first level of liquid that's gone in. So now if you imagine I'm pouring the milk, and that's now telling me you've got a safe liquid level in there. You're not going to hopefully have spillages. I'm using a wide cup, colour contrast. I've been able to do it a lot easier. If I was to use this cup, it's not so obviously sturdy. It's not going to be used for hot drinks, but just for water. That's still going to be harder anyway to use the liquid level indicator on. So, I mean, that's just giving you the difference of the colour contrast. So again, clear cups, not so good. Colour contrast cups, much better. So that's sort of an idea, and when we come to do the sight guide training, we can always try this when you're blindfolded or using the sim specs. What we've got here is a case of the sim specs, really good. Fine glasses produce these, and basically if I show you on there, so that's someone who's got variant visual impairment of light, sensitive to light and light perception only. But it's going to be hard for them to see much detail with that. And what you've got here is someone that's got, again, hemorrhages all over the eye, causing all of that visual impairment, a wide range of visual impairment across. So they're going to have to do a lot more head tilting, maybe, to get their best field visual point. They might even have to look down or up. And if you do see people doing that, that is a common factor. I know when I first became registered sight impaired, I used to get a lot of stiffness in my neck and tension, where I was having to do a lot more head tilting to get that best field visual point. Again, that's something that people get used to. So what we're going to just talk briefly here, I've got some of the canes. I haven't got all of them, but basically someone registered sight impaired or with partial sightedness, you've got the symbol cane. This one's 70 centimetres long, and it's basically a public awareness to a visual impairment. So I would normally be walking along, holding it roughly at shoulder height so that it's diagonal across the body to your hip. And basically that's giving the public awareness that I have got visual impairment. Because looking at me, you're not necessarily seeing that I've got the visual impairment. I don't want people bumping into me, going over to London Bridge Station every day, commuting normally. That is a real bugbear. You get people diagonally cutting across in front of you, and then you're going to trip over maybe their cases that are trailing behind, because I'm not going to see that. So just by having the symbol cane out, again, this takes a personal adjustment and acceptance that this is what you need. So it's not for everybody. I had mine in the cupboard for years before I used it. So it is that adjustment and acceptance that people have to sort of try and get over to use that. But we still try and encourage people that this is a safety element. It's going to reduce the frustration every day, because if you're using this, people hopefully aren't going to be bumping into you as much as they were before. And I do find that that is the case. I can go through the station, I walk fast, I can't slow my pace down. So it means that I can walk at my normal pace, and hopefully if people are looking themselves, they're going to see the symbol cane and they do avoid and give you a wider berth for you to be able to carry on through. So that's the symbol cane. It's not a mobility aid because it's not for contact with the ground, it is just basically that public awareness. What you've got here now with the different canes, some people are visually impaired, night blindness can be a factor. So I realised last winter, since I've had cataract surgery, I am actually needing the long cane now. I don't need it in the day, I just need it for night blindness because otherwise it's hard for me to differentiate the step levels and the curbs, and I always felt like I was going to trip over. So what I do now is when I get off the train of a night in the winter, or even coming out of the office going along Bermondsey Street can be hazardous and tricky, I'll get my long cane out. It makes a big difference. Did make me feel funny using it at first because I didn't feel that this was for me, but it became my friend because I realise now that when I get off the train I'm going to feel safer. I walk down a dark alley that is used by all commuters, but it now means that when I'm going along I can actually keep a fast pace up. Where the roller tip is, this one is a jumbo rollerball, and I actually prefer that. It glides a lot easier over my pathway. You scan body width apart so that you're always going to hopefully find any unevenness in the pavement and the curbs, and where my foot stride then is quite long, but I've still got that safety distance, so wherever I'm walking my cane is going to find any hazards first to my feet, so hopefully it keeps me safe. And by using this, it means that where I'm crossing a road with a small island in the middle, a busy road, there's no controlled crossing that I can use the pelican crossing for. I can actually get the cars to stop if I stand at the curbside, and then they'll stop and then they'll let me cross over safely. So again, it keeps me safe in the winter, more so in the night blindness, and yeah, fit for purpose. That is a mobility aid. So to have these canes, people can buy them themselves from the RNIB, but again, the local authorities, social services, the sensory team can come out and do an assessment, and if they see the need that you need to go to the long cane, maybe from using the symbol cane, then that's what they'll do. Again, it's as to whether or not the people use it, but they can have mobility training to do that. So now we've still got another long cane, and this one is just with a standard tip. So it's not going to glide as much as the other one. That's a bit of a personal preference. I don't like the standard tip so much, I prefer the rollerball. And again, if we now put the loop through, how they measure as well for a person's height is always the middle of the sternum, the chest, that the cane should ideally come up. If you're a fast walker like me, then I just have it slightly longer, just to give that pace, that extra safety element there. So now what you can see, I've still got my pace there, I've still got the safety part, and again, by scanning, definitely unknown areas, people are going to be having their own technique, which would have been part of their mobility, orientation and mobility training with the sensory team. But again, people fall into their habits and do the best way that they can. When you're walking along the street, as part of my training with using the cane, I used landmarks and mind mapping. So going along familiar routes, that's where I'm going to be logging in my mind, okay, I've just passed the bakers, I can smell the bakers, I can then smell the pub maybe that's coming up, and then I know that I've come to the office along Bermondsey Street. Our office is painted blue, so again that's a good landmark. Hopefully it's not going to change and it stands out from the other buildings. So just by being outside a post box as well, we've got a bright red post box out on Bermondsey Street, so that's going to give me the landmark of letting people know where our office is. So all of these techniques is what a visually impaired person is going to be doing when they're walking along a route, familiar, any new routes. If people have got that confidence to do those, then they can obviously, once they get used to mind mapping and looking for the landmarks, the fixed buildings and items, street furniture, etc., then they're going to be more confident to go to that place again. They've also, you can use clues, which are the things that you hear and smell. So all of these things, the brain's trying to fill in the gaps by getting more efficient with those skills and strategies. because when you become visually impaired, your brain is trying to permanently fill in those gaps. So a blind person can be using these skills and a partially sighted person can use these skills, and you do actually use them as much as each other. My feet become my eyes, because when I am walking out, I've got always sensible shoes on. I don't wear stiletto heels anymore. Gonna wear sensible footwear, because now I know I've got as much contact as possible with what's coming up underfoot in the street. I feel safer, I feel more confident, and that's important. So again, the feet are doing as much work as your eyes and trying to fill in that gap of the visual impairment. Hands as well, by touching. I'm quite a tactile person, and that's where I'm getting as much information again as well about someone or the environment. So what we've got here as well, we've got the blindfolds. So when we come to do the sight guide training, the visual impairment, the simulated specs glasses we'll use, and we buddy up with someone, and basically you're going to go in pairs around the park wearing the glasses, getting a feel of being sight impaired or severely sight impaired, and then obviously going to someone that's totally blind. About 90% of people that are registered blind do have some sight. There's a very small amount of people that are registered blind that have total blindness. So it can be quite ambiguous thinking about someone who's blind or whether they can't see, but actually they might have a small pinhole of vision, and it could be anywhere within their vision, but it depends on how efficient they've become with that vision, and obviously that takes time to build up with their confidence. If you've got any questions, then obviously please contact me, and that we'll put this on the website hopefully eventually, and you can find our details, how to contact us best, and yeah, look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you.